It was a bright Monday morning, and the sound of the school bell echoed through the halls. Students rushed to their classrooms, their laughter and chatter filling the air. In room 204, Jaden, a 12-year-old black boy with a shy demeanor, sat quietly at his desk. He loved school, especially science, and despite his family's struggles, he always tried his best to excel. But today, something was different. His old, scuffed sneakers, a size too small and patched up by his mother, had started to unravel. He noticed a few classmates whispering and glancing at his feet. Jaden pretended not to notice, but deep down, he wished he could just disappear. Little did he know, today would not only test his resilience, it would change his life forever. Before we jump into this powerful story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. What happens next will leave you speechless and remind you why kindness and humility always matter, so stick around until the end. The classroom door swung open, and in walked Mrs. Carter, a strict, no-nonsense teacher known for her sharp tongue and high expectations. "Good morning, class," she said briskly, her heels clicking against the floor. "Let's settle down quickly. We have a lot to cover." As she began her lesson, her gaze swept across the room. It stopped on Jaden. Her sharp eyes narrowed, focusing on his worn-out sneakers. She paused mid-sentence, and the room grew silent. "Jaden," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet. "What on earth are you wearing on your feet?" Jaden froze. He glanced down, his face turning red. "They're my shoes, ma'am," he mumbled, barely audible. Mrs. Carter crossed her arms. "Those aren't shoes, they're falling apart. How do you expect to be taken seriously when you can't even wear proper footwear? This is a school, not a charity." The room fell into an uncomfortable hush. A few students exchanged uneasy glances, others looked away, avoiding the moment altogether. Jaden stared at his desk, gripping its edges tightly, trying to hold back tears. "Maybe you should consider if you even belong here," Mrs. Carter added, her tone icy. The words hit Jaden like a punch to the stomach. He wanted to respond, but he couldn't find the words. At that moment, the classroom door creaked open. An older man in a tailored suit stepped inside, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. It was Mr. Grant, the school's founder. His unexpected arrival caught everyone off guard. "Excuse me, Mrs. Carter," he said calmly, his voice authoritative yet steady. "What's going on here?" Mrs. Carter straightened up, startled. "Oh, Mr. Grant. I didn't realize you were visiting today." She gestured toward Jaden dismissively. "Just addressing a dress code issue." Mr. Grant's eyes moved from Mrs. Carter to Jaden, then back again. "A dress code issue?" he asked, his tone firm. It sounded more like public humiliation. Mrs. Carter faltered. I didn't mean." "Jaden," Mr. Grant interrupted gently, stepping closer to the boy's desk. "What's your name?" "Jaden, sir," the boy replied softly, barely lifting his eyes. Mr. Grant smiled warmly. "Jaden, I'm very sorry you had to go through this. No one should ever feel unwelcome in this school." The room was silent. Even Mrs. Carter seemed unsure of how to respond. Mr. Grant turned to address the class. "Let me tell you all something about this school," he began. "This building exists because of one family's generosity. Years ago, when no one believed in the importance of education for everyone, a man stepped forward and donated the land where this school stands today. That man was Jaden's grandfather." The class collectively gasped. Mrs. Carter's jaw dropped. "I had no idea," she stammered. "Perhaps you should think before speaking next time," Mr. Grant said sharply, his gaze unwavering. The next day, Jaden returned to school feeling nervous. Would his classmates treat him differently after what had happened? When he walked into the classroom, he stopped in his tracks. Sitting on his desk was a box wrapped in colorful paper. Carefully, Jaden opened it to find a brand new pair of sneakers, clean, stylish, and perfectly his size. A small card inside read, "Keep reaching for the stars, Mr. Grant." Tears welled up in Jaden's eyes. His classmates gathered around, offering smiles and pats on the back. Even the students who had whispered about his shoes earlier apologized. But the most surprising moment came when Mrs. Carter approached him. She stood in front of the class, her usually stern face softened. "Jaden," she began, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong to judge you. You've shown more strength and grace than I ever could have expected." Jaden nodded, unsure of what to say. From that day forward, Jaden walked the school halls with newfound confidence. He knew that his worth wasn't defined by his shoes or his circumstances, it was defined by the kindness and resilience he carried in his heart. And that's the power of humility and respect. If this story moved you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that a little kindness can go a long way.